Hi, it's Dr. Syra, and I want to talk to you today about your brain and how to understand your brain through this new lens that I've been bringing forward over the last many months through our work through the expansion project around how we are more than just our brains and our bodies. Okay, so how do we actually learn about our brain, get our brain on board with us while still holding that idea that we are something that's beyond just a limited contracted social mammal? So that's what today's video is about. Now, today's video is interactive, which means there's audience participation, practicing for our June 7th event, our live event, when we're going to have a real audience with real participation, a group of people. But today is just you and me here on the video, so you can participate if you're courageous to participate, okay? So if you were a client of mine or one of my mentees, I would take you through this exercise where we would talk about your brain and the different parts of your brain, but I would invite you to actually do a gesture that will help you remember these concepts. So I'm inviting you over video to do these gestures just to help you remember the concept. So up to you. You're a sovereign being. You could participate or you could just watch and observe, up to you. But if you're participating, here we go. So take your two fingers on each hand, and tap here in the middle of your forehead. And you can say these words. This is my captain. This is my captain. This is my captain. Now on the sides of your eyes here, this is my first mate. This is my first mate. This is my first mate. Now in the back, just under that bump, this is the sheriff. This is the sheriff. This is the sheriff. Okay, so what does that all mean? Let me tell you. So the captain is the part of our brain that is in charge. It is steering the ship. It's looking onto the horizon. It's looking at the big picture. It's anticipating things that could go wrong and creating a plan to problem solve them. It's kind of overseeing things. It's kind of calm, cool, collected. It knows the right words to use. It knows when to speak and when to listen. That's the captain. Then there's the first mate. The first mate is the part of the brain that's designed, its very design is to scan for danger. So it's looking at the horizon, and it's looking at these different inputs that are coming in. And as the inputs are coming in, it's like, shark, 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 shark. And every time it sees something that makes it think there's a shark, it has a decision to make. It either has to send that information up to the captain for problem solving, or send that information back to the sheriff to keep you alive. So the sheriff's job is to simply keep you alive. Okay. It is the part of you that, like, really there's no thinking there per se. It's a physiological response to keep you alive. So for those who are more like interested in the technical side, the captain is your prefrontal cortex. The first mate is your limbic system, specifically your amygdala. And then your sheriff is the brainstem, that reptilian brain, that part of the brain that's just designed to keep you alive. And so another way that you could learn this, or you could think about this, is through another gesture that can be helpful. So you use your hand, use your fist. And if you take the thumb, right, the thumb is the sheriff. And the thumb, in the way the brain is designed, is it's inside. It's the deepest part of the brain. And then the captain is the frontal cortex, which kind of wraps around the limbic system. So that's actually inside. And then the brainstem is this part of the brain here, which is kind of the wrist part of the, if we're using the hand gesture. And this is the part. So the brain kind of sits like this. So the limbic system, the frontal cortex, and then the brainstem in the back here. So up until now, I've always taught it that way. Those are the three, and the job of therapy is to help you get a stronger relationship between your first mate and your captain. Because for those of us who have grown up in stressful environments, our first mate can kind of get over jumpy, right? So everything looks like a shark, and not only does everything look like a shark, but the information keeps getting sent back to the sheriff. Now, the sheriff's job is to shut down the rest of the brain and just keep you alive. right? And so when we have an overactive sheriff, like a trigger happy sheriff, it's like we're always kind of in that fight or flight mode. We're either running away from danger, we're fighting against danger, we're freezing with like, totally stunned and don't know how to move forward, or we're doing what's called fawn, which is like making everyone else feel okay, even though inside we're really, really, really triggered and activated. So fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, that's the job of the sheriff. That's how I've always taught it. And we just leave it there. And so teaching people again how to strengthen the relationship between the captain and the first mate. And there's techniques for that. And that's kind of how I did therapy for many years. Until, dun, 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 until this big transformative experience that I've been having over the last couple of years, where I'm seeing more to our human experience than just our brain. And I always knew that kind of on a personal level, but I didn't really have language to talk about it in the world. Now, with the presence protocol and this new therapeutic modality that we're developing, we actually have language to talk about who we are beyond just the brain, just the part of us that's kind of designed for survival. Because even the captain, its job is to keep the boat floating. Like its job is to also just keep you alive. But now there's a fourth element that I want to talk to you about today. And this is a new thing that I've never really spoken about before when we're talking about brain science. And it's the ocean. So in our model at the Expansion Project, specifically with the teachings in the Presence Protocol, we are more than just our constricted, survival-based human, right? We are this expansive being, and we do this gesture a lot. So we're walking around the office and we're all like we're all doing this. So this is the contracted human that's just kind of in that self-protection survival mode. And then there's the expanded version of ourselves, right? Where we're not in just contraction and survival. We're open, and that allows us to be aligned with all that is, like all that we are. That's much, much, much beyond just the brain and the body and our self-protective mechanisms and our adaptations. So what that is that's the ocean, right? That's that other part that's not just about the physiology of the brain. And so what I would encourage you to think about, for those of us who are interested in the cutting edge of consciousness, for those who are interested in getting out of the trauma trenches into the state of expansion and actually living that full, rich, vibrant life that we're meant to live, what I would encourage you is to start getting curious about your relationship with the ocean, right? Another really exciting metaphor that Texas, my colleague Texas, who's the founder of this new therapeutic modality, him and I were having a conversation this morning about me making this video, and he's like, oh, there's this other thing that you have to say, so I'm going to say it so that information gets in here too. We were talking about the ways that the egoic mind, right, the survival-based self-protection elements of our mind, manage this navigation through the ocean. Right? So if we look at different ways that different societies have addressed the actual physical ocean, like how do you get from one part of the ocean to another part of the ocean? And so what the egoic mind will do is it'll like use a bunch of resources to make something really freaking sturdy to just cut across the ocean, right? So you think about like those like thumbs up. We think about those steamer vessels, or right, those really big, strong, powerful, kind of angry looking vessels that just cut across the water, and they just like push through the ocean, right? That's one way of navigating the sea, right? In a three-dimensional reality that we live in, that's one way of navigating the sea, is you make these vessels that are just going to cut across that water. But there's another way to navigate the sea. And I think about that one scene from that Disney animated movie, Moana. Have you seen that movie? There's this one scene where Moana finds these old wooden ships, and they're like vessels. They're like water vessels. they're not like big ships. They're just like these water vessels with, a sail, and it's made out of wood. And she stumbles upon them in this cave, and she's looking, and then she bangs this drum, and she bangs the drum, and then she has this vision of her ancestors navigating the seas in these vessels, in these wooden, like handmade wooden vessels. And when I think about, our ancestors and how they navigated the seas, they had to find a way to be in relationship with the water, right? Not cutting across it, not forcing their way through it, but being in relationship with the wind and the water, and building things that actually worked with the currents rather than forcing their way through. And so as we think about the brain, right, there's different ways that you can relate to your world. You could be that steamer that's just going to push through and just make, or you could build a different kind of vessel, right? One that takes a bit more craftsmanship, one that takes a bit more patience, to craft and cultivate. And the experience of navigating one of those vessels is very different, right? It's not just like you set a destination and you get there. It's you ride the currents, right? You notice what's happening, and you're tuned in to what's happening in the water and in the ocean. And that's the opportunity for living in alignment and living in an expanded state, is we're learning to ride the ocean of life, right? We're learning to be in relationship to the ocean rather than forcing something or building something so airtight that it will push through. So when we're going back to the brain science of the captain, the first mate, and the sheriff, I would say in this new modality, well, the captain's actually not even in charge. It's great if the captain's, the one that's the most in charge, but the captain has to be in relationship with the ocean. Do you see? So it's not just about our brain and the frontal cortex part of our brain being in charge. It's about our higher self and our intuitive mind being in touch with, like, that's what's in charge, is our intuitive mind and our higher self. Like, I guess that would be how we connect it, is that the ocean is that we're all marinating in that unified field of consciousness, and how we navigate that. That's where the beauty and the joy of life starts to emerge, right? We're not forcing something. We're actually allowing and riding and experiencing what's happening in the ocean of life. So captain, first mate, and sheriff, but first of all, how do they relate to each other? And let's get the captain in charge. Absolutely. But then the captain is also in relationship with the oneness, the all that isness, the ocean. He's not at war with the ocean. He's not trying to master the ocean. The captain's trying to work with and understand and flow and read the signals and read the signs. That's what our brain, in this body-brain mechanism that we've been given, that's what we can use our brain for. Okay, to help us navigate and explore the ocean rather than have some sort of mastery over it. So I'd really love to hear your thoughts on this concept. It's a new concept, and I'm really excited to share it with you. Leave a comment to help, with your thoughts, to help get this conversation going, and watch some of our other videos. There's lots coming at the Expansion Project, Expansion Now, on YouTube, and we're also on Facebook and Instagram, so check us out there. I kind of dropped a little seed about June 7th, 2025 is our first live event, and there's tickets that are in person, and there's also online seats. So if you wanted to join us and you're not in the area that we're running the event, feel free to join us online. More information about that in the description, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye.